Hi, welcome to BioChat with me, Alexa Manning, where I invite guests to chat with me about biology. Today's topic is bioethics. So let's start off with introductions. I'm Alexa. I am an ecology and evolutionary biology major, and I've invited my friend here to help me out.
Hi, my name is Ashti. I am a history major. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so the reason why I've asked you here to help me out is I was curious as to why bioethics programs are not more common at universities, and that's where my research started. I found my answer pretty right away. It was pretty much the first source I found, but I looked into it further because that source cropped up a lot more questions and ideas that I wanted to look further into.
Mhm.
It's an umbrella term that refers to research, discussion, and application of ethical theory to biology research and healthcare.
If it is such like a wide-ranging field, why aren't they so common and how do you become a bioethicist?
Even though bioethics programs aren't very common, anyone can be a bioethicist.
Mhm.
Masters and PhD programs are more common, so like grad programs. So you can become a bioethicist through that, but genuinely, you can become a bioethicist in your own way. Like you could be a lawyer for years and then come across a case related to bioethics that really strikes a chord with you, and then you change fields to bioethics. You don't
Mhm.
have to have any previous experience. It's honestly encouraged for a bunch of different disciplines and kinds of perspectives to come together because it rounds out the discussion. If it's just biologists and philosophers, those are typically like academics. And so maybe an elementary school teacher would have a perspective on how gene editing could affect like the disadvantaged students they teach, if that makes sense.
I have a follow-up question because I think I understand what a bioethicist is.
Mm-hmm.
Grasping that what they do is like, would they publish studies documenting like, oh, the strawberries you're eating have GMOs, and here's how it affects you. Would these studies play a role in further like, let's just take the strawberry for an example. Would that play a role in whether or not people continue to consume strawberries with GMOs? Or I'm just trying to understand how this plays a role in the everyday life of people.
Yeah, so basically, these like bioethical studies and research, it goes towards it's more of like a society, it goes out into society really. But the way that it actually makes an impact is in legislation and policy. When politicians get involved and lobbyists get involved and lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
that's when the real change starts to happen. So these, you read those articles about how like GMOs are bad for you or how GMOs are good for you or how it decreases biodiversity or increases biodiversity from different angles. Those articles are then read by politicians so that they can make informed decisions when they write legislation or make executive orders or that kind of thing.
So then, do we have a program here at UCSC for bioethics?
I was looking into this and didn't find much. All I could really find that was specifically bioethics was in the biomolecular engineering program. BME 80G is bioethics in the 21st century, and it's required for all of the BME majors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was like also looking into philosophy majors to see if they have anything on bioethics, but I couldn't really find anything required. And I know that I, as a biology major, I've been like through the different biologies. I've looked at NCD bio, I've looked at general bio BA and BS, and I've landed on ecology and evolution. But none of those have required or even given me the option to take a bioethics course. Um, I would like to look into human biology and see if that pre-health major has any like ethics related courses.
You know, we often talk about how science majors have a lack of humanities classes. So I feel like if you took that class, you'd not only get that ethical portion, but it would be tied in to the science aspect, which is like basically what a lot of these science majors and pre-med students are trying to get, but they lack.
Yeah, so that's kind of exactly the point of this research question in general, because this is the general mood I feel from my peers, is that we are scientists or we are learning to become scientists, but we have no way of learning how to be humane scientists. This big interest in bioethics for me was triggered by an article that I read in the New York Times about a scientist in China, and he was conducting an experiment in gene editing of twin babies whose father is HIV positive. The hospital he worked for said, no, we're not funding this. Like, you can't do this. And he did it. Like, he went ahead and did it. And then also a big part of the scandal was that the parents involved didn't fully know what was happening. Like the contract, it wasn't fully like explained. They weren't fully in the loop of what was going to happen to their children and the risks involved. So he edited the genomes of these babies who were at high risk for HIV, and they were twins. And the result was one is HIV resistant and the other is HIV positive. And the questions that you have to ask now are, what's going to happen to these children? You know, how is one going to feel knowing that the other got the advantage of being HIV resistant while they're HIV positive? The like direct disparities that were caused between these two twin children who like share a womb and share life and a family together, it like created a divide. And will the HIV positive baby always feel inferior? That's a huge ethical question of how have you altered the lives of these children?
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And so my interest in bioethics really started there, the fall of my first year in the Merrill core class. So that's where it started. And I would start asking questions of my fellow students of like, would you take a bioethics class? And they're like, yes, I think we should have one. I don't get why it's not required yet. And that kind of leads me to answer my question of why universities don't provide this course, let alone require it. Basically, their not excuse, but reason is lack of resources. Um, Universities believe that they don't have the manpower to accommodate to the large number of students that would be expected to take this course, which, you know, is understandable. But, you know, especially given like we already have these huge classes that so many students have to take. Like everyone is required to take writing too, but we've made it work. Um, you know, pretty much almost every STEM student is required to take the chemistry series. We've made it work.
Oh, like Chem 1A through Chem 1C?
Yes.
Chem series?
Yeah. That's the chem series. And then there's also a bio series. We've made it work. You know, we've done it. And it's also been done in Switzerland at the University of
Oh,
Basel. Yeah.
that university has the bioethics class or program?
Yeah. So they have built a introductory bioethics class from scratch. And they documented it along the way. It was basically a research experiment, and this was the first source I found related to this research. And basically what they did is they kind of tragic that they started this way, and I found myself a little bit not revolted, I feel like that's kind of strong, but a little appalled. It started out as a session of 2 8-hour lectures to cover all of the material.
Of
And
ethics or like a random course?
yes, bioethics. So what they did is they started and ended the course with student surveys, to get an understanding of their progress in the ways that they reason and the ways that they think about these like bioethical issues and theories, and also to see if the structure worked. It didn't. So
Not
no,
assume so.
yeah, no surprise there. And so the class structure ended on what is very commonly available here at UCSC and other American universities. They have weekly lectures that were more focused on theory. Attendance wasn't required to lecture by the end, but they also had smaller discussion sections taught by PhD students and postdoc students, which is very similar to our discussion sections that are taught by grad TAs. And that was more practical discussion. So they would have actual debates and look at actual examples of bioethics and debate and policy. So that's like the structure that they landed on. It seems to me very adaptable to our system.
It's not like UCSC or the UC system in general has to go out of its way to run an experiment to figure out how to incorporate bioethics.
Exactly. Besides like results from the surveys in regards to class structure, something important came out of these surveys, which is that these students found the course important and relative to their education, or relevant, sorry. The course was important and relevant to their education, and they also found it effective.
I feel like that speaks volumes for like.
Yeah. It also has been done with ninth graders.
Oh.
I know. So 14-year-olds, the same experiment was done in Portugal on ninth graders. It also found the course effective.
Experiment still with like a grad student or like a PhD candidate, or was it like just with a normal teacher?
No, so this was like a normal high school structured class. But it was similar in the way that they took surveys at the beginning and at the end of the year, and they found growth. Instead of making snap decisions that you normally think of a teenager doing, based on like feeling and emotion, they like actually sat through and reasoned things out before coming to a conclusion and making a decision on their positions.
I'm like sitting here like, why is this not something that's implemented here? The kind of reasoning that a lot of humanities students go through when they're like writing an essay or something, and since science students might only take that for like a GE, like I don't know, random history class, they might not be exposed to that thinking, but then bioethics links that thinking with their field, which is even more important, because it's one thing to construct an argument about like, I don't know, why Russia was bad, versus like why you shouldn't tell someone they're dying.
Yeah.
Sorry, another bad example.
It's okay. Yeah, exactly. Like it shows how important this is to the science field and research and practice. It also has effects on their everyday life. Every child, regardless of culture and background, they have the same stages of moral development. And the only difference is the speed at which they move through them. You know, they don't get to the final step. We're not even there. We're 20, we're not at the last stage of moral development yet. Teaching these students these like ethical dilemmas and critical thinking skills that teach them how to reason through things, looking from different perspectives and thinking about the humanity of everything, it's going to accelerate this moral development. So this is why I've come to the conclusion that bioethics shouldn't just be required at the university level. It should be included in biology classes starting in ninth grade. Beginning this education as soon as possible will only help young students become more thoughtful and more moral people. They're going to be more thoughtful about the ways that their actions affect others.
Mhm.
It's bigger than just more ethical science,
Yeah.
it's more ethical people.
Yes, I'm just thinking about how we don't really have any sort of class that doesn't really teach you morals or how to think through decisions. And not only would this class allow you to do that, but it also has like the career aspect in it. And if you are able to teach students, like 14-year-olds we're talking about, how to do this, their decisions that they're going to have from there on out are going to be more logically thought out. They're going to weigh their different options. It seems like it's so much bigger, like you said, than just furthering their career. It's about cultivating their moral development.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not about making ethical, humane scientists. It's about making humane humans and citizens of the world. It's bigger than we could ever imagine. Thank you for listening to BioChat with Alexa Manning. Hope to catch you again soon.